In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Glory to Jesus Christ. Today is such a fantastic feast because we celebrate two great wonder workers. In fact, today, it's kind of funny, we were going to do the daily readings, the readings for Herman and the readings for Spyridon. But the epistle reading for Herman is actually the same epistle reading as appointed for the day. And so you catch two birds with one stone. And the gospel reading for Spyridon and the gospel reading for Herman are the same, because they're both wonder workers. So we only did two epistles and two gospel readings, though we should perhaps have done 6. But it's a wonderful feast because you have two massive wonder-working men who are separated by about 1,500 years. St. Herman died in the 1830s, this period of time. St. Spyridon died after Nicaea in the 4th century, the 300s. And so it's so remarkable to see how close these men are, how similar they are. And when you read the writings of the Holy Fathers, one thing you see, especially, well, it doesn't matter, throughout all centuries, it's always fresh. There's always some kind of beautiful freshness to the writings of the Fathers. Whether you're reading the Fathers of the 1st century, the 2nd century, the 3rd century, all the way up until now. And when you read about St. Seraphim, who was St. Herman's contemporary, they were so fresh. There's such this intense freshness. And yet there is such continuity. It doesn't change, and yet it's always new. How is that? When we read the Old Testament is thousands of years old, thousands and thousands of years old, but it never grows old, even though it is the Old Testament. Because it's God's wisdom, and God is eternal. So does God grow old? No. Does God become new? No. It's the same. And yet it's always new, and yet it's always the same. And so the Scriptures renew us because they come from God. And so do these holy men, these Saint Spyridon and the Saint Herman, these two great wonder workers. They are fresh. And it speaks to the beauty of our faith. It speaks to the power of orthodoxy. You know, when I look at the Protestants, they always are changing. You could say they're fresh, but they're fresh in a way that isn't good. They're always changing. Why? Because egotism drives each change. Right? Even the Bible cannot be the same for them because every ego touches the Bible and changes it into something else. And so it's constantly changing. And if we look at the Catholics, they change also. But the Catholics are also torn up because some of them want to be old and some of them want to be new. But can the church become modern? Is God modern? What is modernity to God, who is from ages to ages? God says, I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I'm the one who was, who is, and who is to come. Right? And so can God be new and can God be old? No. And so we have to be careful not to be attached to one time. We should reverence every time. We should reverence the old times, the Old Testament times, all the way to the apostles and throughout all the Holy Fathers. But if a man says, oh, I wish I could have lived in Chrysostom's time. Why? Chrysostom lived in this time. He proclaimed the truth. That's what we call him, the golden mouth. For St. Herman, all the great Russian saints were in the Middle Ages. And so he could have said, oh, if I had but lived in St. Sergius' time. Why? St. Sergius lived in this time, and he proclaimed Christ then. If St. Herman had been obsessed with this, then how would he have proclaimed Christ in his own time? You see, the church is ever fresh because God illumines each generation. And so each generation has its own work. And so our duty is not to replicate the past or to change for the future, but to be faithful to God, to possess fidelity to his commandments in each age. And so God will renew the church in each age. If anyone comes to you and says, oh, the church needs to be renewed, you should say, does Christ need to be renewed? Must Christ change from year to year? But Christ says, but what does Paul say? He says, Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. So Jesus Christ cannot change. Well, the church cannot either. The work of the church is not to appeal to a new generation or to hold on steadfastly to the past and say, oh, we must remain as they were in the 4th century. It's too late. We're not like that anymore. And yet the Spirit of God is the same. And so the church will remain the same. Even if investments change and certain exterior things change, the church herself will never change. And so we should be very careful when we hear a man say, oh, the church must become modern. We must adapt to these modern times. Well, what does that mean? We should proclaim Christ. Otherwise, you're saying, oh, Christ himself would have to come and change. He would not be able to come to us today. He would have to come differently. He would not come differently. I mean, he might wear new clothes because that's the clothes we wear. But his message would never have changed. It would have been the same. And so the church should always remain the same. And we should have great confidence because we have an unbroken line of saints, all the way from St. Spyridon, whom we celebrate today, all the way to St. Herman. And what has changed? Nothing has changed. The essential truth has never been altered. It has remained as it always has been. And so we should remain faithful in this generation. We should give thanks that we're in this generation, because God found us worthy to be proclaimers of His truth now. And that's a great thing. May we proclaim His truth the way that Herman did, the most glorious and righteous one, and also as St. Spyridon did in the time of great trial. Amen.